welcome back to another Q&A video. I'm just going to oil these balls here and this ball here, which I'm going to tell you more in a few minutes. So let's dive right in. Scott Kershaw asked, it was a video on a plate which I did a few videos back. When you process that cherry, did you try to get your plate stock from mostly Quatersawn grain? The answer is no, I did not. The reason is this is actually that cherry log, the same one. It was not big enough log to get a decent size plate, Quatersawn at least. So this is where the heart would be on the log, and this is one of the quarters. Here will be another here, and then at the 45 degrees again. It's just too small of a log. So what I do when I have that kind of a small log, I actually just get few boards out of it, and I either rough turn the platter blank, or I just leave it as a board and then twice turn it once it's dry, so, or even 3 times. So it's mostly like in woodworking, where you don't build immediately furniture with the lumber you buy. So you either just plane it a little bit, then you leave it to sit for a week or 2, then again you do that again and leave it for maybe 5 days, and so on, and that way it will warp and considerably, and to a point where it won't warp anymore. So that's what I'm doing with flat sawn material. Obviously when it's probably going to get wet, used and such, it will sort of bend maybe a little or warp, but nothing major. It's not like it's not usable in any way, so I just adapt with what I have. Ideally it would be great to have a Quatersawn material, but it's really hard to get it, or at least process it, that kind of logs here in Croatia, because mostly if there are big logs like that, you won't be able to get it anyway. So rough turned a couple of times, even maybe 3 times a platter, and then it will warp minimally. So it's already like in that few rough turning stages, it usually warps as much as it wants, and even when it's used it won't warp as much. But like I said, if you want to make the best platters or plates, Quatersawn would be great, but it's hard to get it. So, and this cherry is, I just love it. Nice deep bowl with a little bit of decoration. Okay, next question is from Alan Loves Wood Turning. How long you've been turning, Tomislav? So that's actually quite a common question I got. This one, by the way, this bowl is already oiled once. Just put it another coat. So I've been turning since I've got in my trade school at age 15. So that will be roughly 17 years now. So I'm 32, will be in a couple of months. So for 17 years, but bowls primarily I've been turning for 4 years now. So these 17 years that I've been turning, I turned like maybe once or twice a week for a couple of hours top, making spindles or furniture legs, parts and stuff like that. So let's say eggs for Easter, or we will even make a small baseball bats for kids, which we taught at the school, to to keep it for themselves. So that was always a fun project with them. So stuff like that. So not but not with the balls. Like I said, the ball turning and my own lathe, which I bought 4 years ago, the DML from Record Power 320. I bought it after I watched Richard Raffin video with fine woodworking, where he turned a cherry ball, and I contacted him. I got in touch with him, and learned a lot from him and from his emails and books and videos, and just like, I don't know, I watched some of his DVDs. I don't know, maybe I won't exaggerate, but maybe 50 times, 100 times. So I watched, like, one time I watched it and watched the body movement. Then the other time I watched the GOUGE presentation, and I watched it through all of the video. So there's a lot of, I'll say, dedication to learning this if you want to. And like I said, especially ball turning is not something that is common here in Croatia, and it's quite rural actually. Some of the balls I saw here from the older, now pretty well retired turners here in Croatia. So they used to turn balls which are not that old, maybe 10-15 years. They drill hole for so they drill on the bottom of the ball for a screw hole, and mount it, and then shape the outside and the inside all at once while it's on the lathe. And they never bother to plug the hole. They never bother to, I don't know, get the shape sort of like this, something, maybe, I don't know, jam chuck it and reverse it and deal with the foot or the outside of the ball at least. So it's not pretty balls. So I didn't have anywhere to to just go and ask. So I got some courage and sent first email to Richard, and the rest is, I guess, history. And a lot of, now he can point, or me or anybody else can point you out in good direction, but the rest is just practice. And I wasted a lot of gouge steel, a lot of metal, time, wood to grinds. I've been through all of the grinds, 40-40 grind, the asymmetrical grind, then I tried the long grind, and so that's at least my opinion, which I'm come up with over the years now. So this next question actually quite ties nicely with this last part which I answered. Randy Cosgrove, if I said that correctly. I see that you used your ball gouge in shear scraping this piece instead of flat shear scraper that you made earlier. Is there a reason you used a ball gouge, or was it just the tool out on the bench? Not good with the reading today. Most of the time I shear scrape or finish the surface on the ball before sanding with the tool that is closest to me. But that being said, some woods, or at least, now this is my opinion, I would highly suggest that pretty much the more the better ways or method to finish wood before sanding. So that now some of the woods I could use a scraper, shear scraper, flat on the rest, on the tool rest, and get a decent surface, which I can start with 180 grit. Some of the woods I can't get the surface well enough with the shear scraper, then I go with the gouge, which usually does, at least in my opinion, in my practice, does quite well with the woods that doesn't like to be scraped. So even in shear scraping mode, when you where you tilt the scraper up on edge. So for me it's actually quite good to know all these ways, and the other part is, don't be afraid to sand your bowl. Some of the woods are, I don't know, let's say for example this walnut, these three actually came from the same log, but I have two more types of walnut here from two different types of log, and they all perform differently on the lathe. So this one, these three, I actually got a quite better surface with the gouge in shear scraping, and where the scraper just a little bit more tear out, or let's say fuzzy grain or stuff like that. It wasn't much as clean. Now I could sand the surface quite easily with maybe 150 grit, and it will be to start, and it will be okay. There is another thing that I want to say that kind of involves in this question, and that is sanding. Now there is a few turners that like say that if you sand with 120 grit, then you're not good enough, and to me that's nonsense. That's, you know, that's just rubbish talk. Sometimes, or most of the times, I sand with 180 grit. I start with 180 on the outside, and usually on the inside I start one lower. It will either be, I don't know, some of the imperfections or raised up grain, which without the oil lubrication doesn't want to cut cleanly, no matter what the bevel is or grind or whatever. So there is a couple of times that I need to grab like 80 grit and sand the inside of the bowl. Now the great thing about starting with the 80 grit on the inside is it smooths out any slight imperfections on the inside in regards to your shape, or it's sort of shaping the wood slightly. So don't be afraid to sand slightly lower grits if you have to. Like I said, it's not something to be embarrassed. Like I said, for me at least, it's more embarrassing to say that you are not good enough if you have to start to sand with, I don't know, 120 grit. So that's nonsense, I guess. So what's the story with this guy? So I was asked by a guy to make this is for a game here in Croatia. I'm not sure if there is this outside Croatia, this kind of game. So they usually, it's called balote, bočanje, something like that. Now this is a little bit smaller turnout, but the weight it's not okay, so it's much lighter than it should be, and I don't have the wood that dry this big, or as it should be. It should be around diameter about 100 mil, and I don't have that kind of wood, and which would be dense enough to be around, I don't know, 700 grams or 800 grams. And they use this like bowling, but or like what's it called, that game with the mop on the ice with these blocks. Oh, what's it called? I'll probably remember after I finish the video, but something similar is happening with these kind of balls. and he sent me a picture, and you drive screws pretty much next to each other on all of this surface, which protects the wood when they throw it on the sand or wherever they're playing with. So this, like I said, this wasn't good enough. This is oak, by the way, and it should be at least 3 times the weight of this. This is 272 grams, and it should be at least 700 grams, at least bare wood. And once the screws are in, that will be roughly around 850 to 900 grams. So I'll either have to source some of the more densely wood, dry it, and to be able to make some of these, because there can't be any cracks in it. So that's the other nuance, which it's not that great for me, at least, in sourcing the wood. And so, but at least now it will be, I don't know, for somebody, or I will keep it for myself. Maybe let it play, give it to my toddler to play around. Hopefully won't throw it out the window. So just while I'm here, I want to show you, I started to make this kind of foot, as you can see here. Quite like making these like so. They are different, not something that I've seen, so they can either be gripped around, or some of these are a little bit bigger than my chucks, so I finish them after. So, but I quite enjoy it. It's like a proper craftsmanship when you flip the ball over and you see that it's this is domed, it's not flat, so it's domed and it's under this rim here, and kind of looks neat, I think. Okay, so final question is from Thomas Cahin. I hope I said that right. Not great work as always. You make it look so easy. Please provide a reference of your coring device. Now this coring device is called McNaughton's ball coring system. I got it actually. I traded for spindle blank from walnut, a nice big one. It's used, so not the owner that I got it from, but the owner before that actually quite abused the blades. So it usually comes, this is I believe mini set, so it comes with a straight knife, which now I use mostly because it's the only one that it's usable, and these 3. And these may not look that bent, but trust me, they are extremely bent. And I believe this one is what I used in the 4 ways the nested ball video which I did. I sort of straighten it to a point where it does slide just barely through, so you have to fit it through here and through this smaller gap, but it's kind of, there is some of the shavings here, but it grabs, and it's not great. So this must be smooth here, and this is well out of anything usable, and they are practically brand new, and which indicates to me that he either, I don't know, tried to core some dry stuff and just crank up the speed, and feeding rate it was too great, and just burned them, bent them, and they lost its rigidity and everything. So this one is twisted and bent in this direction, and I try to bend, and once you get it to one position, it's extremely hard to get it straight or to original shape in this here dimension. So just don't bother with them, and probably get before the winter a new set, and that's it. So just use this straight one to get the cores out, and it works great. And it's nice thin blade here, and you push it through this, and you get your core out. So thank you again for your questions. Feel free to ask whatever you are interested in, and see you in the next video.